All right, so today's going to be a little bit different. We're going to be talking about coffee tasting. Now, I do want to preface this by saying coffee tasting is an art form, and just like any other art form, there's no right or wrong way. Unless you're not tasting coffee. If you're tasting milk, then you are doing it wrong. I'll draw the line there. But the reason I say that is because this is going to be a combination of my own personal philosophy along with what I've been trained and taught from my mentor and other people I've tasted with. So if there's anything in this video that you're like, what is this dude talking about? That's why, because we pick up what we learn as we experience our journey on coffee. So, with that out of the way, I'm wearing my Hakuna Matata shirt, and we all know Hakuna Matata means it is coffee time. So, to give you a quick little breakdown of what a coffee profile typically consists of, there are four major pieces that make a coffee profile. Those four pieces are going to be flavor, acidity slash acidiness, body slash mouthfeel, and finish. You'll often hear this referred to as FABF. That is your coffee profile. There are four other secondary characteristics as well. Those four characteristics are bitterness, sweetness, roast impact, and intensity. Those are all kind of like additives to the other four to a degree, but if you really want to do like a comprehensive profile, usually you'll see something along the lines of FABF, and then along with that, you've got fragrance. Fragrance is going to be what the coffee grounds smell like when they're dry, and aroma, which is coffee grounds when they are, you guessed it, wet. So, or saturated, however you want to describe that. So going through FABF real quick, just to give you a breakdown. Flavor is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. Now, in my opinion, pretty much every single flavor that you will experience in coffee can more or less fit in four flavor buckets. So in flavor, you've got kind of four subcategories, and those four subcategories are going to be, in light to dark roast order, more or less, you've got fruit, nut, cocoa, and roast. A lot of things under roast are going to be like smoke, herby, earthiness, tobacco, all those types of notes are going to be under roast. I don't know why I'm going in reverse, but we're going in reverse now. Nut is going to be exactly as it sounds. Nut and cocoa can be a little bit tough. Nut and cocoa are very close. I would argue fruit is probably like kind of like the redheaded stepchild, where fruit is very separate and unique and distinct, where nut, cocoa, and roast, I'll throw roast in there too. All three of those are much closer in how they present and how your palate interprets them. And what that means is it's very common, and even to this day, I've been coffee tasting for 4 years now, and there are still times where I will experience something that I am interpreting as cocoa, and everybody else at the tasting table is experiencing nut. That is very common. They're very close together. There are distinctions, but that comes with time and training. And while we're on this subject, coffee tasting is subjective. It is what you experience. It is your perception. There is no correct or incorrect way to analyze a coffee. What matters is that what you are saying, what you are articulating, makes sense and that people are in agreement with you. We call that calibration. You'll typically see, like, for instance, where I work, most of us who taste at this plant are all calibrated, where we share our thoughts. Could you argue that's bias? Yes, absolutely. We do try and be aware of that. We'll often have, visitors and, different people from different roasters come by and stuff like that. And we'll share our thoughts. We will, just kind of like let our thoughts marinate and challenge each other. And that's how you grow. That's how your calibration becomes tighter and more relatable. Relatability is everything. We want to be only as specific as possible when it comes to describing a coffee profile. I know it's easy to read profiles, you'll see it for wine and beer and coffee, and it'll be like, this tastes like citrus from Greenland. Does Greenland grow citrus? Probably not. But like super specific notes that people are going to read that and be like, I don't know what a flower from the Himalayan mountains tastes like. It's not very useful to describe coffee that way. It's very much just a selling point. So we try and avoid that when we're doing more, I guess you could say, standard profiles. We only want to be as specific as possible, because if you are not specific enough, that's not good either. If you just describe a coffee as this is a little sour and bitter, nobody's going to be interested in that. There's no depth to what you're explaining. There's no enticing factors. So kind of a in between, you want to hit that nice balance of just being specific enough to accurately describe what the coffee tastes like without going so overboard where 99.9% of people are going to have no idea what that means, nor will they be able to interpret that on their palate because that is such a specific experience unique to you. So, leaving past that, we're going to go to acidiness or acidity, kind of different names for the same thing. Reason there is a distinction is because the acidity content in coffee, yes, I know people who are more scientific about it are going to be like, no, that's not true. But for the most part, but pretty much every single coffee has the same amount of acid in it as far as pH balance type acid. What changes is how that acid presents and like your palate experiences it. And what I mean by that is it tends to follow light, medium, dark. Light tends to be more citric and malic acids. Medium tends to be more malic and phosphoric acids. And then dark roast tends to be more phosphoric acid. That's just kind of how the acid changes in general with coffee beans throughout the roasting process. How your palate interprets that changes based on the roast degree, the coffee type, all that good stuff. Citric acid is exactly what it sounds like. It tends to be more citrusy, almost feel like sour. It's easy to conflate the sour taste experience and citric acid together because they often present together. But citric acid is not the sour taste. They are two separate things. That is an important distinction. Yeah, but that's more specific. Getting on to malic acid. Malic acid tends to be a more dry, appley presenting acid. I think of like something that tastes like a green apple skin, kind of that dry mouthfeel, and it's a little appley. That's what malic acid feels like. Phosphoric acid is very much like a more, I've heard it described as metallic. I've heard it described as kind of bitter, powdery, chemically feeling like medicinal. I think if you go grab like, don't do this, but if you grab like 2 ibuprofens, I mean if you can, you want, grab 2 ibuprofen little tablets, put them in your mouth, that feeling you get throughout your palate before you drink the water, where it's kind of powdery and medicinal, that's very similar to what phosphoric acid is like. There is a fourth common acid called acetic acid or acetic acid that I legitimately don't know how to pronounce it, but that is a very vinegary presenting acid, and that will come generally from certain types of fermentation, which occurs in the processing of the raw coffee beans for the most part. There are defects that will present that acid as well as other acids, but those are the kind of the big 4. I would argue the big 3, but acetic acid is generally thrown on there as well. And then, of course, you have the intensity. So if you see high acidity / bright acidity or medium acidity or low acidity, that's going to be the intensity of those acids in the coffee. Again, intensity, not amount. The amount is generally pretty even across all coffees. It's just the intensity of how your palate experiences it. Like phosphoric acid tends to be a more low acidity type of description because when you drink a dark roast, that full mouth feeling is really not intense. It can be, but in general, you'll see dark roasts described as a lower acidity type coffee. Moving on to body mouthfeel, this refers to the viscosity of the coffee, the way the liquid literally feels on your palate. Now, there's all sorts of science behind the chemicals and how your palate feels it due to the presence or lack of different chemicals. But the quick and easy version is either the coffee will be very kind of thin, watery, light on your palate. It'll be kind of in between medium mouthfeel, which will often and analogize. Sure, why not? We'll relate it to like a 2% milk, and then a full-bodied coffee would be something heavier on the palate, kind of like a heavy cream, something along that line. So that's mouthfeel, and then moving on to finish. Finish is kind of like if you have FABF, flavor is going to kind of tie into finish, where you're going to be relating what are those notes that you're last getting, the finish of the coffee, along with the duration and the sensation. Now this is, like I said, I'm going to be getting a lot of my own type of stuff. There already has been a lot of my own stuff throughout this, but duration, sensation, basically what I'm getting at with that is how long does that note last on your palate, and how does it feel lasting on your palate? Is there some sort of sensation tied to it? Is it kind of sparkly? Is it tingly? Is it kind of dirty or harsh feeling? Is it sharp? All those type of terms I refer to as sensation. So there you have it, FABF. That is your major parts of a coffee profile. That's going to be it for this video for now. We'll definitely do more at a later date, and by we, I mean me, because I am the one and only Mateo. I appreciate your attention.